this morning, our meeting is, we have Tara Hurless, who's presenting on active shooter scenarios and the building emergency plan. Tara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Like Holly said, my name is Tara Hurless. I'm a detective with the University of Illinois Police Department in our community outreach and support team. I've been with the department, the police department, for a little over 10 years, but I am actually a graduate of the University of Illinois back in 2005 with a communications degree. I competed at the University of Illinois in soccer, and then once I graduated, I moved to Sweden and played professionally overseas. But I love Champaign so much, I'm back, and I love being a part of the university, just being able to interact and engage with not only students, but faculty and staff as well. So I told Holly and Kimberly that I would turn my video off because I am at home and I don't want it to cut in and out. So this is very, if you have any questions, just go ahead and speak up right away. We don't have to wait until the end. And we can communicate and talk about things as we go through. That's how I kind of like to do my presentations, just so that if there's a point that comes up and we want to talk about it, we can go ahead and do that. So is everybody okay with that? Yes? Okay, cool. All right, let me get to the presentation. So like Holly said, this is active threats, active shooter situations. Is it not gonna? Okay. So what this comes from is we want to do orientation into these type of scenarios, especially because they're happening more and more. And I believe there was just one at another school recently. So it's derived and modified actually from the Texas Tech and FBI. So from our training and experience at UIPD and from this, it's what advanced law enforcement rapid response training would look like if in fact this would happen at our university. So the entire objective to this conversation is what I would like to call it, is to discuss about how to provide potentially life-saving information to all of these on the call, and you can share this with other folks as well, in the event that this would happen at the University of Illinois, whether it be active threats, an active shooter situation that's ongoing and continuing. And we even talk about safety aspects within that as well. Sorry, you might hear my email go off a bunch, so I apologize for that. So what we're trying to do is define actually what an active shooter is. I have a set of 3 links where we're talking about how to learn from past incidents, the power of actually being present and aware when you're not only on the campus, but just within your normal daily lives. We talk about the options of response, run, hide, and fight. And this brings up a lot of questions, so just know that. And then what to expect when we arrive, not only law enforcement that are on patrol, but when they dispatch out the SWAT team and what that would look like. And then I like to end the conversation with what we can do after the incident and resources that would be available. So right here, it's pretty familiar for you all. You can see that on the left is our university. It's the quad. During quad day, you know that there's lots of folks that, and it's not just freshmen and faculty and staff, it's all students that come to the center of gravity, which would be our quad. Yes, the university continues to expand outwardly. However, that's a main hub. And this is actually one of our lecture halls. So we could talk about critical vulnerability here. So the definition of an active shooter is a person or persons actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. So when you talk about confined, that would be like the picture on the right. That's a lecture hall. And we say it's confined because you're in a building, there's 4 walls. You would need to know the layout, to run, hide, fight. Or in a very well-populated area, think about our campus. Populated area would be the quad. What else? We could have State Farm Center, Memorial Stadium. When you talk about events that occur, we have concerts, we have the 4th of July, we have the marathon, things like that that come to our community, is why I think it's very important to talk about these situations if this were in fact to occur. So the common attributes, which I mean is very hard to define. When you look at this list, and I'll talk about a couple of them, but as I'm talking, you can read through them. I mean, we're talking about an age range from early teens to the late 80s. That is a large portion of the population, right? You can't just narrow it down to most shooters in these types of situations are 32 years old. This is over half the population when we go and look at the past events that have occurred. We have done the research that 1 in 8 events took place at schools. So that's whether it's a campus community like a university, or a where you've got a high school, junior high, those types of schools. But what these individuals plan to do is, sorry, I think I was cutting out just a little bit. They want to carry out their plan in high populated areas, and it's very, very seldom spontaneous. They plan these things out. And what I like to talk about in this aspect of it is, we all know the things that go on social media. So you have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and lots of times what we're seeing more recently is that because these folks plan something out, they tend to post things on social media. So one thing to know is that if you see something that doesn't seem right, or it kind of catches your, you read it and you're like, man, I don't think that's great. Is my screen not sharing? Kim, you're muted.
Oh, not anymore.
That's okay. That was flick. Okay, here we are.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay, thanks. So people will post things, whether, for example, they have a picture of something drawn out of the actual place that they want to carry out their plan, or they post a picture of possibly the weapons they want to use. So like I said, if you see something, say something. It's not only in these types of situations, but really anything. Come to the police, and not in a way where you want to necessarily have to file a police report, but hey, I saw this and I don't think it seems right. Can we talk about it? I totally suggest doing that. These links, for some reason, it won't let me click on it. And quite honestly, they are very long to watch, but Holly or Kimberly, I will send you this presentations and you can all take a look at this at your leisure. But the one I like to talk about is this one right here. Walmart shooting, active shooter. And the reason I like to bring this one up is, I don't even know how many people are on this call, but we've all been to a Walmart, correct? We know necessarily the layout of the Walmart, especially in our community. You have the one in Savoy, you have the one at Prospect, and then you have the one in Urbana. I will say one thing that we're learning from past incidents, not even just an active threat situation, but just in general, is that anytime you go to our Walmarts right now, they seem to all be under construction because they want to have the same layout universally. So all over the United States, they want you to walk in, there's cosmetics, then you have like Tupperware and all that, and then there's the tire area, then there's fishing and outdoors, and you go to the left, and on the left side of the Walmart is the food and produce. And I have no idea if that's the layout, but in my mind, that's what it was the last time I went into the Urbana one. And they were changing it because in this active threat situation, it was, like most situations, very chaotic. And it was chaotic because there wasn't necessarily a building emergency action plan for that Walmart. It had just been updated. So the folks that were responding were kind of going in blindly because what we thought the layout was, it wasn't the layout. So it's really important for us as law enforcement to really, after an event like this, really research and discuss how we can do better. How can response times be better? What can we do where we're responding quicker and more efficiently? Okay, so right here, this is called mindset of your mental awareness. So when you specifically think about having a sense of awareness, so like I said before, I played soccer here at the University of Illinois, and there's a gentleman that has been taking pictures not only of, you know, all the athletes in the competitions, but he's also taken pictures of how campus has changed. So, you know, I've been there for quite some time, back since 2001. So you're talking about 22 years. And campus looks different from this summer to last summer, let alone 22 years. So he had posted a picture, and if everyone can picture the intersection of Bright and Green, can you all picture that? Okay, that is where the lights will shut down going all directions and you can cross diagonally. Can you all picture that? So when in 1996, he happened to post a picture versus 2022, because that's when he took the picture. And can anybody tell me what they think the difference would be from 96 to 22? Anybody?
I can.
No?
I can.
Okay, what is it?
So in 96, there were 4 lanes of traffic versus 2 and a parking in the middle, or not parking, but
That
like
center lane.
that center lane. So there were 4 lanes of traffic. There was a bookstore on the front, that would be the northwest corner.
Correct.
On the southwest corner, there was a bank.
Yep.
And on the northeast corner, there was I thought there was an academic building, but I can't honestly remember that.
So those are all 100% correct. But here is the main difference. And I'm going to turn my video on real quick. In 1996, so I wasn't on campus then, but even in 2001, when I was on campus, when you looked around and people were walking to class, to the coffee shop, to the bookstore, wherever, you saw folks walking, right? Now in the 2022 picture, this is what you see. Literally, there was probably over, I'm going to actually put it in this presentation. There was over 60 kids that were crossing, and this is all you see. This is it. So when we're talking about the mindset of having awareness, this cell phone is a huge problem. I know we're so busy, we're emailing, we got a text, we have to go here, we have to do that, but you go from being totally unaware and unprepared. So you're totally tuned out. So that's just, you're just walking almost like you know where you're going, but you take that same path every day. You don't have to think about it. So you are so tuned out, you don't necessarily even hear if there's a problem up ahead, or even observe if there's some sort of, you know, accident up there. I will share that after the last home basketball game I worked, you know, I had worked my 10-hour shift straight into a basketball game. So I think I had been there for like 13, 14 hours, whatever. So that's a long work day, right? I wasn't unaware or unprepared. I was relaxed while driving home. I was prepared if something were to happen, because I did have good situational awareness. So I'm driving home, going south on Neal, and all of a sudden I'm seeing way up ahead, everyone's slamming on their brakes. So then I obviously go into action like, okay, well, what's going on? I switch lanes to get out of the way. And then up ahead, there's an accident. So I have to completely go from that yellow where I'm totally relaxed to, okay, I'm on high alert. I've got to take action. What's happening? So you can go in the middle of like the drop, snap of a finger is how fast you might have to act. But to be able to make that switch, you have to have situational awareness. So after yellow, you go into orange, okay, where you can specifically identify that there's a focus, an interest, a threat. Okay, so you're ready to act. I already talked about red, and I don't think I've ever been in the black color where I'm panicked, frozen, in shock, but I think that's because of the line of work I'm in. I respond differently than what a civilian would do, because you're not necessarily trained in responding to high impact emergencies as such. I was driving to work on 74. I don't know if anybody drives 74 eastbound to come into Champaign, where all that construction at the 7457 interpasses. And I could see up ahead that somebody was turning into that construction zone. And I saw the two people in front of me start slamming on their brakes, but I had enough space in between. I ended up being involved in a 5-car accident, and this individual that was driving behind me smashed me so hard, like I could feel my neck kind of crack. This just happened 3 days ago. And then the 5th car, he was so unaware of that construction and unfamiliar with it. He was driving 65. He hit her so hard, which made her hit me so hard, that his car started on fire and almost blew up. Like, I'll share a picture of it, but it was very, very scary. So I think it is very important to talk about having that situational awareness, because at any point in time, you're going to have to switch from yellow to red, action time. So I'm getting out of the car. Cars are going 60 miles per hour. I'm trying to see if everybody's okay. I'm calling 911. The girl behind me was crying. I think she was more, shocked more than anything. But that's why we need to pay attention to what's going on, not just within our own area, but within our campus community. When we talk about how to respond to whether it's active attacker, active threats, active shooter, anytime there is a threat in that area, you have 3 options, okay? You run away, you're gonna find hiding because it isn't safe to run, or at the end of the day, the only option is for you to fight. And we're gonna talk about these 3 things kind of in depth. Okay, so run. Your option is running. Sorry, someone put something in the chat. Yeah, go Sean, amazing memory. That is, like, as soon as you were describing all that, I knew exactly what you're talking about. So good job, Sean. So first option is run. So if you hear that there's a threat, or you hear something going on and it's safe to do so, you're running away from that danger. And lots of times I like to have these discussions and conversations face to face, because then we can actually use the room we're in and we can talk about the room. So Kim, I can see you, I can see your room. So or your office, hey. And right in the back behind you, I can see it appears that there's a door over your left shoulder. So we will just use your office space as a example to kind of walk through run, hide, and fight. I don't know what building you're in or what floor you're on, but sometimes we have to think about using non-traditional exits. Can anybody give me a non-traditional exit aside from Kim's door behind her? Yes.
A window.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah. You may have to use a window, and to get out of that window, you may have to throw a chair through it, or your computer, or because a lot of times our windows on campus Well, I'm in a very old building, so there's like 1,000 years of paint painted shut. So I'm never going to be able to get that lock to unlock and get that open. So I'm going to have to use, you know, something heavy with it. A water bottle can go through glass. Well, in my office. Another thing that's good to talk about is leaving your belongings behind. You can replace a cell phone. You can replace your purse. You can replace anything within your office, Kim, but you can't replace you. So when you think about getting to safety, you're only thinking about getting yourself out of that space. So let's see, Victoria said they removed the window handle in our office. Okay, that's not very helpful. So you're not, the way you would leave that area is specifically having to use something within your office to break that window, since there is no longer a handle there. Another thing, once you identify that there is a threat or there's something going on within your space and you are removing yourself from that threatening space, take others with you. So if you, Kim, I do you have a door anywhere else but right there?
I actually have a walk-in closet.
Okay.
And so it has two entries. It has an entry from the main office, which is locked, but then you can get into it from my office.
Okay.
So I could theoretically get in there and barricade it until help comes.
Correct. Which is great. That's, you're using an imagination, right? You have to figure out what to do to keep yourself safe. If in fact that threat was, you know, behind you at that door, then you would have to, like you said, barricade. And once we talk about hide, we can talk about a lot of things within hiding somewhere. So if you're leaving that threatening space and getting to a safe place, it doesn't necessarily mean right outside your building. It means further away, several blocks away. And warn others that are coming into that building or into that space. It's not safe to enter. Please walk away from the building. And then you obviously are walking as well, away, running. So think about when you're leaving, you may have left your cell phone. Sometimes people have smart watches. While you're leaving that space, think about making contact with 911. What building are you at? What side of the building are you located? Where did you hear that threat? Because again, you're running away from that danger. And even if you don't have all the information you need, it's still good to call and let them know, yeah, I am coming out of the 505 East Green. I am on the north side of the building where I heard it was from the southeast corner. But I wasn't able to see anything. I just heard it, because it's not just you making that call. There's multiple people calling that in, as you are as well. Okay, so hiding. Lock the door, turn out the lights, and make yourself out of sight. That rhymed, and I didn't even mean for it to do that. I'm a poet and I don't even know it. So the reason for that is if you aren't seen, or if your phone doesn't go off or your watch goes off, you're out of sight, you're out of mind. Therefore, that individual is moving on to the next. Because again, if you remember from the beginning, what they're trying to do is go to the most populated area. So if that individual doesn't hear anything, they're not going to spend the time trying to search through, like in Kim's situation, that closet area, because that's taking up more time. And in their mind, their whole process, their whole plan is to go to the most populated space within that building, lecture hall, State Farm Center, things like that. So again, make sure you silence your electronics. I saw something funny on the other day, like when cell phones first came out, I don't know if everyone remembers, but you basically had to buy ringtones to have something different than what it was normally. And literally, I was always having some song that was my favorite song as my ringtone. Now for like the last 6 to 7 years, I don't even have the ringer on. In fact, I never have the ringer on. I've got to use my watch to locate where my phone is. So silencing my electronics isn't the problem, but you also have to think about your computer. My computer at work, I have the volume on because I'm doing a lot of Zoom presentations, or my phone goes through my computer. So think about those things that you may not necessarily have thought about beforehand. And it's great to have these conversations because this helps us be proactive in case something like this were to happen rather than reactive. So barricading the door. Kim, in your situation, does your closet door go in or out?
It goes in.
In. So that's good because you could take a chair into the closet with you and barricade it shut by putting that chair back up underneath the handle, and somebody couldn't necessarily get it in. However, some of our office doors, like mine, swings open towards where that possible person would be. So if I barricade my room, they can still open the door. So we have to come up with more creative things. So what I would do is, okay, I've got a couple belts, I've got shoelaces. Can I tie something around that door handle and tie it to something else to when they open the door, it's not going to open? Can I jam something in? There's a lot of heavy doors on campus and it has this metal swing bar up in the upper corner. Can you jam something in there to where it's not going to allow you to open? How many, let's picture that we've all been in Bollinger, right? Or at least are somewhat familiar. I'm only using that because I know how many entrances there are. So you've got 2 doors on the stage, you have one right by the stage, and then you enter in from up at the top with 3 big doors. So when you think about that, I don't necessarily know how those doors open, whether they're in or they're out, but I know if I'm hearing an active threat situation, let's say up behind me, which would be at the top of Bollinger, I wouldn't be running towards that threat. I would be running down to the stage and out the door and going away from anything that I've heard behind me. We can't solely just rely on locks. Campus is getting really good about updating a lot of the doors, whether it be iCard swipe or these, I don't even know, you have to have like an Allen wrench to then open it so that it stays open. And once you lock it with that Allen wrench, it slides a big metal bar into the actual frame. So if you're able to lock that, that's awesome. They're not going to be able to open that up. But who carries an Allen wrench on them? Right. So we have to think about how we would get that door to lock in that situation. I think when I got hired in 2013, they give us a set of keys that help us get into the buildings and whatnot. And they gave me, the size of a normal key, but like 7 Allen wrenches because, back in 1800, when the university was started, each year, whatever, they just kept getting different hex heads for those Allen wrenches. So the likelihood that everybody would have that is slim to none. So we need to think about, like I said, having a creative way to keep yourself barricaded in. And like I said, I talked about the non-traditional exits. Oops.
Can I ask a question about the non-traditional exits?
Yes, I'm sorry, I went ahead of myself. Okay, go ahead.
That's okay. You really only mentioned the window as the primary non-traditional exit. I knew that we were having this training, and so my brain was just kind of running. My office has 1 door, no windows, no anything. However, the window or the walls are made of drywall. Is there thoughts, or does anyone ever talk about trying to go through the drywall
So
as
actually,
a non-traditional exit?
Yeah, that actually came up. Thanks for bringing that up. That came up in my last, I usually only bring up windows because very rarely, well, I actually do not have a window in my office. So I also only have a door. And when you think about drywall, it's not even like the true 12 inches 2x4s, where you secure that into, it's like partition walls. So the last time I gave this, which was last Monday, an individual had the same sort of office setup as I did. And he said, if you come to my office after this, I'll show you, I can just push my wall over. And I said, that's great, because I mean, other than a window, you don't have another option. So we talked about it in one of the older buildings, and it's a plaster wall, which would be harder. Yes, you can go through drywall. You obviously, you'd have to use something within your office to get through that drywall. And do you know if you have studs there, or is it just like a partition like what mine is?
They're metal studs. And the reason I'm sure of that is because there's commercial, it used to be a Starbucks on the backside of us. And so they've been putting up more drywall, and you can hear them drilling into the metal studs, the commercial studs.
Okay.
But the walls that separate your offices, those should be, I think they're wood. I think they're plywood. I think.
So
You can go from one office to the next, but not out.
So when you talk, yes, there's many non-traditional exits that you may have to utilize in a situation like this. And Sean, you said you have no windows at all?
Correct.
Is it a solid door on your office, or?
It's a very solid door.
Okay. Because
the wall behind me is paper thin though.
It is? Into another office, or where does that go to?
It goes into I don't know what the new establishment will be, but it used to be a Starbucks.
Where are you
but
at?
I can feel them sanding the wall behind me.
Oh,
right.
wow.
I mean, yeah, it's thin.
Wow. But that's good that you've thought about that. Like when we have these conversations, I build off of it each time as well. Because a lot of people have different setups. You know, I used to be on the third floor of a 120-year-old house, and the only way out was the door I came into on the third floor. Well, I can go out a window, which has a fire escape, but the fire escape is from, 1900, and half of it's broke. But again, I can go down as far as I can and then jump down, but that again is through a window. So I appreciate anybody who has anything else to share, because that's just what I add on to the next presentation. I just didn't happen to bring it up. So I appreciate that, Sean. If anyone has any other questions or ideas or how they would get out of their office, let me know. So fight is the last one out of those three options in active threats situation. So, when you can't run or you can't hide anywhere and your life is in danger, the only option now is to engage in a fight. And this comes up. I was speaking with the engineering staff of U of I, and they said, okay, well, yeah, you stated you have the legal right to defend yourself, which you always do. So don't ever be worried about defending yourself and hurting somebody else in a situation like this. Does everybody understand that? You may have to use improvised weapons. And if you injure that person with your improvised weapon, or somebody is able to obtain the weapon they were using, you are not going to be in trouble, arrested in a situation where you are not only defending yourself, but you're defending folks within the entire campus community in a situation like that. Another staff member brought up at the university, well, it was in Indiana, it wasn't at the university, an individual engaged in or made comments about having a plan, and he ended up, I believe, engaging with one individual who was then deceased. Well, it just so happened there was a civilian that had his concealed carry, and he actually engaged that active shooter, and in turn, that active shooter that had this big lengthy plan that they found at a later date ended up deceased because of that citizen. It only takes that one person to spark a fire. And yes, nobody has you're not carrying a weapon on campus, but I like to talk about, we talked about non-traditional exits. When you talk about improvised weapons, look at the water bottles that people carry. They're like steel, they're double walled. That would hurt. Think about a pen. I know when you are going up against somebody who has a weapon, obviously those are not real weapons, but you could still use it to create that distance for a second, to then that one person turns into 6 people, and 6 versus 1 is a lot better than that one-on-one to try to stop that active threats. So you are committing to your actions. You see a opportunity to engage with that individual, and it's easier when we're face to face and I can show you kind of what I'm talking about, but it's when one person commits, that's bringing, maybe let's say there's 20 in the room, that's bringing 4 more. You're more apt to take control of that active threat as a group than as just an individual. So other weapons, sometimes people carry pepper spray, right? That really burns your eyes, even if it doesn't necessarily hit that individual in the face or in the eyes. Just the once you put that into the air and people start to inhale it, taste it, it can burn your throat too, to the point where you can get that space, you can take control of that situation. Anybody else have any other possible improvised weapons that you would be able to use within their office or in their backpack? Or
Hot coffee.
yes, love it. Anything else?
Key.
Yeah, anything in your office. Look around your office. You know, I think about, okay, well, my computer screen, that's got points on it and it's somewhat heavy. Even just bumping your head lightly kind of stops you for a second. Think about taking that and hitting somebody in the head. Those are the types of things that you would have in your office that you'd be able to pick up and use. A chair would be good, but that's kind of heavy. So part of the chair arm, does that come off? Things like that. If you're at a restaurant, chair, your silverware. We talked about at another presentation having, and I always say, go to your supervisor and into your own internal staff and look at the CAM policy, but they do say you can have a pepper spray. Obviously it's not the like the police issued pepper spray, but it still works. And there's something within the campus, whatever CAM stands for, CAM policy for the university, about taser stun guns. So those are something that I would say whoever is the supervisor, you all can talk about that and see what per your unit, what that CAM policy looks like. So once we arrive, so this is, I told you, like, if this situation were to occur, law enforcement from all over Champaign County is coming to that building, that location. This picture is what a SWAT team does when they are dispatched out. They're working in groups of 4 to cover all angles. This isn't what it would look like with law enforcement because we are just responding straight from our squad car and we have our tools that are on our belt, and that's it. The average response time for law enforcement nationwide is 5 to 7 minutes. So think about our campus in 5 to 7 minutes. That seems like an awful lot long time. And when you look at that situation, I think it would be less time because we not only have our police department, we have Urbana Police Department, we have Champaign Police Department, Champaign County and ISP in and around that area. So it may be 5 to 7 minutes for that SWAT team to get out there, but you have law enforcement responding to that building, not necessarily waiting for, that 4th member to arrive. Our first line of defense is everybody within our campus community. What did you see? What did you hear? Where is it coming from in the building? What building is it at? Because that first responding officer that may just be driving around campus, they hear something, they're getting out, they're going to engage with that threat. I cannot stress it enough that awareness matters. So if you do see something, you hear something, say something. In a situation like this, like at Michigan State, because that's a university community that just happened, it's different agencies all working together. So our goal as law enforcement and our number one priority is to stop that threat. So I'm driving around on, let's say, Wright Street, and I hear something, I get out. I am not waiting. I am getting out of my squad car and I'm going to address that situation. So the second part of our priority is anybody that's coming in after is starting to secure the area. So again, like I said earlier, if you're leaving that space, you're warning others to not go in the building, right? Law enforcement's priority after stopping that threat is to secure the area so that no one goes in and nobody goes out, so that we can stop what's going on in the building, the lecture hall. Those first responders can tend to the wounded, but that first officer, second officer, third officer on scene, they are taking notes and they're letting dispatch know what they saw, but they are leaving that individual in that spot because they want to go stop that threat. It is obviously a very high stress situation for everybody involved. So what we have come up with is make sure your hands are empty of any items. You know, if someone were to call in 911 and say, hey, I think there's an active threat, the individual's wearing an Illinois sweatshirt with jeans. That's like not only half of our student population, but we appreciate obviously the descriptors that come in, but we don't know what we're coming into, right? We don't necessarily, and there may have not even been a call yet into 911. So we keep your hands where they can see them, avoid quick movements. You're not necessarily running up to that police officer. You're staying in that, location where that officer's clearing that room, that office, that lecture hall, and they're following where people are saying this is where the threat is. So Kim, like you were saying, you could barricade yourself in the closet, right? So you've turned off your lights, you've turned off your electronics, you're in the closet, an officer or the SWAT team comes to your office space. They're not just going to clear that office. And what I mean by clear it is you're looking for if there's a threat hiding within that space. And you can stay on the phone with 911 if in fact you did call them, but you always can verify if the police are at the door. So if they're saying, UVI police, is there anybody in here? And you're not, answering because you don't necessarily know if it is UVI police or if it is that active threats person, you can always ask, okay, well, I'm at this building on this room or in this office number are there police in my office? Dispatch asks, they say yes, then you can open the door and they will get you out and take you to that safe space outside of the building. Because we are training constantly with different agencies, because if you don't train, then you aren't prepared, and it's all about being proactive. So we are prepared if something like this were to ever happen, in hopes obviously that it doesn't happen.
Quick question, to clarify, you're saying you're on the phone with 911 asking them if this is the officer that has been sent, right?
Oh, right. So some not been sent, but if you've called 911, they'll say, okay, please stay on the phone, because they're trying to get as much information from, as many people as they can. So you say, well, someone's outside my office saying they're the police.
Right.
And I'm scared to open the door. So
and to make sure someone isn't what is it called when they act like they're police officers?
Yeah, they're yes. I mean, it is obviously it's illegal to impersonate a police officer.
Right.
Yeah. So if we're responding to the situation and it's me, I would say, UVI police, Detective Hurless, is there anybody in this space? And nobody answers. Well, I'm still going to be opening these doors because I can't just go off the fact that nobody said anything. So, Jasmine, if you called into the police and you're like, yes, I'm in my closet. I don't want them to know I'm in here. They're saying they're U of I police. They're saying it's Detective Hurless. Like, you can say those things to that METCAD dispatcher, let's say because you've already called them. Then they would identify, okay, yes, that is her, you know. And this was not active threats, but when I was little, like 11, and I was babysitting my sister, it's before cell phones, and she grabbed the phone and randomly dialed 911. Well, if someone dials 911, they call you back. And I was on the phone with 911, and officer had been dispatched to my parents' house, and they said, Rockford police, open the door. And I'm like, I'm 11 years old, and I'm talking to 911 saying there's police officers at the door. They showed me their badge, but I'm not opening the door. Everything's fine. My sister, who was like 2, grabbed the phone. So they did confirm it was police officers. It was 2 males. I still didn't feel comfortable opening the door. Like I said, I'm 11 years old. They're showing a badge through the peephole. And then I confirmed that I'm okay. It was my 2-year-old sister. I gave them my parents' number, my address. But in a situation where, we're adults in a situation like this, I would be confirming to dispatch that, yes, I'm in office 272. And there's a closet, and I'm going to open the door. So that officer is communicating, Jasmine, yes, U of I police, Detective Hurless, I'm going to open the door. Is there anybody in here? And then dispatch is confirming with you if you happen to be on the phone. If you aren't on the phone with somebody, you still don't feel comfortable answering, because you don't know if someone's impersonating it, like you had said.
Right.
You can always make sure, if once that door is open, because for likelihood of them knowing UIPD or Detective Hurless or badge number, however they're making themselves known, you're in the back corner, hands visible, and they can see, okay, yes, we've got somebody in here. They are okay. Can you send in an officer and we'll get her out?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, and are you all in the same building?
No.
Okay, so you're spread across campus.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing like the engineering department when I spoke with them. So this first one, account for missing persons. Well, that might be hard, right? Yes, the office you're in, but you don't necessarily know if there were other people in the area, or how many folks are within that building or office space that you're currently in. But you do know, like, yes, there's people in and out of my building all the time, but I know I have a solid group of 8 people. So if 6 of us come out, well, and account for missing people, there's 2 missing. Okay, well, 2 people are out sick. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, if there was 8 people and 6 are out and there's 2 still in the building, those are things that we would be communicating to 911, who would then be communicating it to those folks that are within that building. Is that understood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and we do talk about, determining method for notifying families of victims. That's something where once that active threat has been stopped, you have accounted for missing people, and then you're communicating to those officers, those detectives that are on scene. This is who we can't find. I know, this is their husband, this is their wife, this is their family members. I don't know their contact information. And then those officers are the ones, how they're going to be the ones delivering that information to those families. And one thing that I think we think about, but we don't necessarily think about it, is what happens after this situation. That would be very, very hard. I always talk about, I had a friend that played softball here at U of I when I played soccer, and her sister was in, I don't remember, it's in Vegas. You remember that concert where there was an active shooter across the way at a hotel? It was a country concert. I can't remember who was singing. And you know, she was with a group of her 6 friends. Well, it's in this big open area. And an individual that was sitting right next to her did not make it. So you think about, yes, it's a very traumatic situation for those folks that were able to make it out safely, but even more traumatic for the aftermath of how do you deal with that? Don't hold it in, communicate. We have a lot of resources at the University of Illinois, and actually within the police department, we have social workers on staff. We have a reach unit who are actively responding to those in crisis. And if you aren't able to get in to talk to someone, that could be someone you could speak with to talk about what you're going through. Even last night, I saw it. I mean, I had gotten home, put the kids to bed, did dinner, and then I'm looking outside, and I live on a very busy road, and there was like 3 cars. So I go outside and someone had hit a dog, and obviously not as traumatic as that, but then I've got the family members come in and find the dog. So I'm trying to pick the dog up. I'm trying to call 911. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to have to take in, right? You have to make sure you talk about it, whether it's with the people you experience that stuff with, or if you go and seek help outside of that with a counselor or a social worker, so that you're not just going at this alone. And that's really, really important, because it was a very traumatic experience. Oops. Sorry, my computer. So, you know, I always kind of end it with, you know, we define what an active shooter is and what that would look like. And I'll get you those links. You'll have them. I'll email, whether Holly, you want me to email this to you, or Kim, I can email it to you. But I think it's really important to learn from past incidents, because that's how we get better, not only as a, like I said, law enforcement agency, but working together with our community members as well, to have these conversations and talk about proactively responding, so that we aren't on the reactive side of it. It is so important, and not even only in here, but when you talk about our campus, we have between undergraduate, graduates, students, faculty, and staff, we have, I think it's 65,000 people. That's bigger than the town I live in. So that 65,000 people, yes, our campus is big, but that doesn't even include the people that aren't affiliated with U of I that are driving in and out, because coming from, you know, the north side of Lincoln Avenue to go to the south side to get to Windsor, that's the easiest way to do it. So we have a lot of folks in our small area, and that power of being present and aware of situations in front of you, or things that you, like I said, you may have seen on social media. That is really, really important. If you see something, you say something. And now you have a face with a name of an officer. You can reach out to me anytime. I'll have my contact stuff at the end of this presentation, because we need to talk about, you know, those response options of run, hide, and fight. And then, Jasmine, those were great questions about what to expect when help does arrive. And in a situation like that, it's very unnerving to trust that it really isn't somebody impersonating a police officer, you know, behind that door, where you're actually safe in there and someone's saying, police, open up, police, you're safe, UIPD, however that's communicated. So yeah. I really appreciate having these conversations and you all asking questions, so that I can get better at responding to other questions that may be asked. So I had a conversation back and forth through email over the last week about your guys' building emergency action plan, and why it, you know, in situations like this, it is really important to make sure you have an updated one, because Sherry Wooten is the one that does all our building emergency action plans all over campus. And they have their presentations along with how emergency management teaches and communicates about responding in emergency type situations. For example, I don't even know how many weeks it was now, but when the tornado sirens went off, I'm like, oh my gosh, is it the first Tuesday of the month? Is it 10 a.m.? No, it's what's happening? It was Monday. So I have never in over 20 years been on campus and that siren go off and it means something. So lots of times, not until something happens is when we learn to get better on how we respond to situations like this. You know, my unit went into a new building. Some of you are having construction in your own buildings. You know, well, what does that mean for the building emergency action plan? Is it up to date? Are they doing construction so that maybe your office numbers aren't the same? Sherry Wooten is going to contact, I think, either you, Kim, or Courtney is that what her name is?
Yeah.
Okay, to schedule her or Peyton to come and give you guys that presentation, but we also like to come into the space and look at it. Look at, you know, I can't remember who wrote on here that the handles of the windows were off. There may be a reason for that. I don't know, but that's something that they would put into that building emergency action plan, that these windows are not functional. What are we going to do in a situation like this? So I emailed Sherry this morning that I was giving this part of the presentation, and she said she was going to get with Peyton and me, and then we were going to come, because how many different buildings are you all in?
We're in 3 different buildings, 2 of which are not controlled solely by our office.
So they're not a U of I building, is that what you mean?
So no, what I mean is that in student services building, we're in this building with several other campus units, but we're not charged with the oversight of the BEAP.
Got it, yes.
And then for, we have a team that's in the Division of General Studies area, which is over in the bookstore. So we won't control that BEAP as well. So the only one that we have had control over is in our lease space, which is over at the ASC.
Okay.
And even initially with that BEAP, we did it in conjunction with the folks with the bookstore because that's where Starbucks was there.
Correct.
So with them being gone, I think Foundation is supposed to be moving into that empty space, which is why you hear the construction, Sean. But they're not in there yet.
So, and for that space specifically, once that construction is done, that is when that new building emergency action plan would be in effect. They would come in there, they'd look at the space, they'd figure everything out, it'd be documented. And in your buildings or any U of I buildings that you all are in, look on each floor by the exits. There should be a piece of paper that has the entire, where you're currently located, where your exits are, where your elevators are, where the wind, I mean, it has everything documented. And if you don't see those at all within your buildings, let me know. I just went, I can't even remember what building it is, but they've had construction for like the last 3 years and their room numbers are all new. So I communicated with Sherry because we worked together on that to make sure everything is up to date. And they haven't had a building emergency action plan in 2 years. Well, that's a problem. Like, and we can't help with what we know, we don't know as that's happening. So I put her in contact with Sherry, and then we're going to be getting over there to take a look at the space as things have been updated. So Sean, once that gets done, once you stop hearing that and feeling that sanding on the wall, you let us know and we'll be over there to get you a new building emergency action plan.
Well, the lease space is 2 separate spaces. So we don't share the space with them. So ASC actually has their own diagrams of those exits and where the rooms are and things of that nature. We just did it together with Starbucks because we were the 2 university units that were in the
occupying that space. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Sherry's going to be reaching out to you or Courtney on Monday or Tuesday to get something scheduled to come in to each space just to make sure. I sent them everything that that you all sent to me, and then they will come in and give their specific presentation on that. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
I appreciate everyone being involved and giving, having conversations.
Do
Okay,
we still, Tara, offer self-defense classes on campus?
thanks for asking. Yes, we do. You know, we have, it's called rad teasers. So if you do a lunch and learn, we can come in and do a teaser. So you don't have to take the rad class is a month long and it's every Wednesday night from 6 to 9. That's a lot of time, right? People are really busy and we understand that. That's why we want to start offering these teasers so that we can come in for 30 minutes to an hour. If you guys can get an hour and we can talk about these sort of things where we go over 3 to 5 different moves. And it's just another conversation. And my sergeant, Rob Murphy, is the one that does those. So I can get, if that's something you all would want, contact me and we would love to come and do that. So if there's nothing else, I will let you all go. It's almost the weekend
Mhm.
and it's supposed to be good weather. So have a great rest of your day. And then
Yeah.
if it's not me coming to that lunch and learn, I will get you in contact with who you need to talk to and we'll get that squared away.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Tara, for giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to have one thing I do like to say real quick is usually after these conversations, we offer a de-escalation presentation where we talk about how to de-escalate where, you know, it's not necessarily what we say, it's how we say it. And I think sometimes, you know, we're interacting and engaging with folks all over the United States in our space on campus. Therefore, I think having these conversations on how to de-escalate conversations that may have escalated is another option that usually I'm scheduling. I think I have like 6 scheduled for this summer so far because things are a lot quieter on campus. So if that's something you all would be interested in, I'd love to come to your space. We could do it Zoom, whichever you want.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, have a
Thank
good day.
you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.